This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual. Ladies and gentlemen, the host of WEBIT Virtual, Dr. Plamen Russev.
Hello, wonderful WEBIT community. Special thanks to our partners from the virtual show for making this fantastic, wonderful opportunity a reality, to stay close to our community and to have all of you with us. I'm very grateful for having your time, but above all, I'm very grateful for having you as part of our ever-growing community. We've recently reached over 1 million Digirati from all around the world subscribed to our database, being with us and actively supporting the current and hopefully future growth of the industry. From a personal point of view, for me, it's a great challenge to be with you almost every single day. Instead of only once per year, we have 3 to 4 events per week. But at the end of the day, we do it because we are really what we are because of our WEBIT community. This week, we talk about brand innovation. It is the Brand Innovation Week at WEBIT Virtual, and I'm sure words like authenticity, necessity, simple and straight messaging, and of course, building on the trust are going to be a very, very usually mentioned words. We have 2 fantastic panelists, and I have a co-moderator today who are going to lead us and walk us through the world of branding. And those 2 amazing panelists today are going to answer a lot of your questions. You know how to ask them live via Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, our own WEBIT channels, and I hope I'm going to have your attention on that. Without further ado, I would like to introduce you my first panelist, and there he is. She is.
Ms. Susan Vobejda is CMO of The Trade Desk, the global technology company transforming media for the benefit of humankind. Named to Forbes' World's Most Influential CMOs, Susan is a recognized expert at the forefront of marketing's digital transformation. Susan brings a strong track record of strategic marketing leadership and a passion for building brands across the media, technology, and consumer sectors. Before joining the Trade Desk, Susan served as EVP and Chief Marketing Officer of global fashion brand Tory Burch, where she led a customer-centric, omni-channel, and global digital transformation of all brand communications.
Susan, such a pleasure to have you with us at WEBIT Virtual. Thank you for joining.
Of course, Plamen. It's so great to be here, and thanks for having me.
We have seen your video business card, and there is my question for you. You have moved from a fashion brand, and fashion is so cool, into your new role. Can you share with us what made you consider this new career? I mean, it's the same career in a new industry.
Well, I've had a twisty, interesting career. I refer to it as a spider web career, where I like to do something different every time and take what I know over time, build agility, and just have new experiences. So I was the CMO of Tory Burch, which is an amazing fashion brand that many people know and love. And now I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at the Trade Desk. The Trade Desk is an incredible fast growth technology company. We market a media buying platform that agencies use to buy digital advertising across devices, across channels, and it's also known as a DSP. We have had last year $3 billion in advertising spend on our platform, and it's a fast growing situation as a company and also as a marketer. If you've worked in a hyper growth company, you know it's an experience that you will never forget, and every day is very, very different. And what's interesting is I took a lot of what I learned in fashion and in other roles in digital and technology and media and e-commerce into this role to build a brand in a different way from any other technology company.
I can imagine that, and I hear how passionate you are, which is actually normal for a marketeer. But there is also a very big difference, and we have so many marketeers currently with us on that digital event that can make the difference between a B2C and a B2B approach. What currently you are doing. So what is the? I mean, you said twisty. So what was the twist here?
Yeah, well, I think that people think of B2B advertising as sort of the functional sale, the like logical sale, with B2C being the glamorous emotional sale. And I think when you think about the B2B customer, it's actually a really emotional, well-considered position to use your product. Because in our case, media agencies and the traders that use the platform, it's their job, the success of their careers, the success of their clients on the line when they make decisions. So I would argue that B2B advertising should be even more of an emotional consideration and emotional sale than B2C, given the engagement of the customers. So I arrived at Tory Burch at the trade desk after Tory Burch, and the company was doing fairly traditional B2B advertising, very logical selling, explaining what the DSP could do in terms of reaching customers through digital advertising. And we had an illustrative approach, kind of showing how you could reach people with data and technology. And we really shifted dramatically. And I took a playbook out of my time at Tory Burch, starting with the brand's DNA. Who is this brand? Who are the people that built this company? And what's unique about it? And in the first even few months, we started referencing what I would consider to be an unusual part of a technology company, which is they are founded and was built in Ventura, California, which is a surf town if you haven't been there, in the coast of California, sort of in between Los Angeles and Santa Barbara. And new employees used to go get surfing lessons at lunch. It's really a throwback kind of spot. And so we just started playing with using that DNA and infusing it in our communications with imagery around Ventura and surf, and also adding more humanity into our communication. So those are some of the first things we did to really start to disrupt this idea of traditional B2B advertising. The second thing that we did was really then go for purpose-driven advertising and a platform to really talk about our brand over time. And that was the next evolution, which we can talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually very exciting. And I would like you to share more before we jump deeper into my questions, which are more about the next of where the branding is heading and where the brand's heading. We are having so many discussions about it. I would like to go deeper for your own journey and the brand journey in turning the trade desk in what is currently, we've heard already the numbers. It's quite a number of revenue through the platform. So how can you define the journey of building the trade desk brand?
Yes, so I think the journey was really, we had a quick win leveraging the brand DNA, and I can talk about that. And then we built a sustained media platform, or sustained brand platform, talking about the purpose of the company. So the quick win, which every marketer wants when they're early in your job, no matter what the level, was kind of the first 6 months on the job. We launched what my boss called as the biggest product release of our entire history. And it was a 3-pronged product release that included an AI feature, a new user interface of our technology platform, and also a planning tool. And this is all very technical, really interesting products for our audiences, but we wanted to wrap it in something that really got attention. And at that time, we'd been playing with the brand DNA, and so we called the release the Next Wave, and we did a tremendously, interesting campaign for the audience, which was a surf-driven campaign, and teased the release to traders and to our audiences before we even released it using surf-themed imagery. And it was so unique for the space. And again, the people that use, the traders and media buyers that use our platform are so engaged with us. It was very hard for us to keep a secret what this next wave was. We got call after call after call when we were teasing the campaign. What is this next wave? What is this next wave? It was hard for us to kind of keep it under wraps because it drove so much interest because it was unusual for the category. And it was a smash hit of a launch, so that was great, but we really sought to build an enduring platform over time that talked to our purpose. The purpose of the trade desk, and it was articulated in our S1, is really to fuel the open internet, to fuel creators, journalists, videographers, those who publish across the internet, and allow them to finance themselves via advertising. And in fact, the health of the open internet actually relies on our platform and the ability for advertisers to buy media as they do using data. And that purpose is so resonant for all of us. We all care about a healthy, thriving open internet. We all care about journalism. We all care about getting the content we need to inform ourselves. And so we went through a brand positioning project that took 18 months. We did it twice with our great agency, BBH, that we hired on this journey with us. We did one round of positioning. We liked it, but it wasn't quite as breakthrough as we wanted, so we did it again. We actually went through the exercise again. And one day, BBH presented a set of words that really, for us, articulated what we stand for as a brand, and a presentation, a brand idea that we wanted to present to our boss, to my boss, Jeff Green, who's our CEO. And I called Jeff and I said, Jeff, who was in Ventura and I'm in New York, said, Jeff, we're coming to see you. We're going to bring you one platform idea. We love this idea, but it's a swing for the fences idea. And he said to us, I want you to swing for the fences. Even if you miss, I want you to swing for the fences. So that's a super important thing for a CEO to do. And I just would ask all CEOs out there, if you're trying to support creativity in your organizations, that's so encouraging for all of us, and such a great challenge for all of us who are trying to do disruptive work. So we went to Ventura and we presented an idea called Media for Humankind. And that idea, Media for Humankind, really articulates what we stand for at the Trade Desk, which is enabling the open internet for all of us. We've done tremendous work, a launch campaign, and then we just did some incredible videos with Neil Brennan, the comedian director, that took it to the next level. Really were funny spots based on the Big Short, the movie The Big Short, where Margot Robbie's describing a complex topic, in her bathtub. We did similar advertising, explaining programmatic, reach in programmatic, and objectivity in programmatic advertising with Neil Brennan, and he brought such a flavor to the spots. So we really, understanding who we are at the core, leverage that into compelling advertising over time.
Fantastic, Susan. Actually, we were having two videos behind us on the full screen, backing up your words, and that's quite a story. What do you think is the, or I will say, are the key factors for success for a modern marketeer in building the brand?
I think you really need to start with who you are as an authentic core and what your role is in the world. Narrative and creative has never been more important, and you need to tell that story in an authentic way to customers to engage them and capture their attention. It's just so important. The other thing that's happening is marketers need agility and to show return on investments. And I know that the CMOs out there are spending a lot of time with their CFOs right now, because we're all conservative about how dollars are being spent since the pandemic, certainly. And really an understanding of data and technology and how to be efficient with your spend and tie spend to measurable business results is critical today. So those two things I would say are important, and they're very, we talk about marketing being left brain and right brain. I would say that today marketing is hyper right brain and hyper left brain in its construct. And you really, as a leader, need to build a team to help you do that, both the analytical and the creative at the extremes. And that is the challenge of a marketing leader today.
Well, brands are all about experiences, I believe. In the digital era, we are DC or AC during COVID or after COVID, especially if you cannot have the opportunity to interact in person with customers. But at the end of the day, it's always the right mix of technology and creativity. When we say technology, we could be currently a deep fake, can't we? I mean, it could be AI. I'm not, definitely, but it's
glad to hear
that. So let's presume we are not deep fake and moving it in regards of the balancing. Where is, what do you think? What is the right balance between the creativity and technology, being part and leading the marketing effort of a very technological company yourself?
I think one depends on the other. I really do think it's both. You absolutely have to have a narrative that resonates with customers. And by the way, customers are in control today, and you're really getting at when you talk about experiences and the importance of experiential marketing. Customers are in control. They can you have 4 seconds to get their attention. It's the attention economy. So you want to make sure that you really connect with them, win their hearts and minds, connect with them emotionally. If you don't do that, you can advertise all you want using data and technology, but it won't resonate and it's wasted money. On the other side, when you think about the extreme efficiency that you can get in prospecting new customers or engaging with existing customers using data, using first and third party data on platforms, if you aren't doing that, your messages aren't being seen by the right people, and you're not growing your business without those tools. So it truly is both today, and there's just no getting around that. That is why as a leader, I've focused on building a leadership team in an organization that can do both.
Oh, that's fantastic and very well said. And we look forward to see your future success in that, because obviously the future belongs to these teams with special knowledge and special superpowers of creating personal immersive experiences through virtual environments. I would love to continue having our talk with you, but we have another fantastic participant here in our panel. Just the last question before I invite our second special guest, and then continue to our common panel afterwards. I'm sure we have over 9,000 people now with us live, which is quite fascinating. We were expecting around 6,000 registered. So that means we have quite an interesting discussion, and coming up next, even more questions. How do you see that pandemic has changed the role of the marketing experts in general? What would be your take on that?
So I think the pandemic has accelerated trends. For example, connected television and streaming, the streaming audiences in an exponential way. We were already on our way to, for example, streaming viewership, but accelerating those trends is what we're seeing. But from a marketer's standpoint, there's a real need for agility. If you talk to any marketing leader right now, that is what they're talking about, the ability to reach audiences, adjust their spend, adjust their strategies based on what's happening on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis. And that is something that, fortunately, the digital advertising age and the programmatic age is here, because you can start and stop spend, adjust your audience targeting, adjust quickly, even with television advertising, given these platforms. So it is really the age of agility for brands and for marketers. And that's in the creative realm as well, which I'm sure Chuck is going to talk about next.
Thank you so much for this, Susan. Please bear with us. I would like to start the discussion with my next guest, exactly where we are with you now. Here is my next guest.
Chuck Porter is chairman and partner at Crispin Porter and Bogusky. He joined the Crispin agency as a creative director and partner after a long career as an award-winning freelance copywriter. The agency was renamed Crispin & Porter, and within 3 years it doubled in size and became one of the top 15 creative shops in the country. His many years of leadership have helped CPB earn the honor of Ad Age's Agency of the Decade. He has served as chairman of the American Association of Advertising Agencies, and in 2015, Chuck was inducted into the Advertising Hall of Fame.
Chuck, such a pleasure to have you back, this time virtually. How are you?
I'm very, very well, thank you. I'm in Valencia. I've been waiting here for a month. No one has shown up.
You are touching, you're actually putting your finger very deep in my wound, but it's not a bad city, isn't it? I should not be worried about it. You must have great fun there. Thank you so much for joining us, Chuck. It's, that first sentence proves that everything has changed is not just a metaphor. It is the reality. Everything has changed and everything's changing. And I have no patience hearing your answer to the same question I've asked Susan. What do you think has changed and will never be the same in marketing and branding? And what do you think will stay there and after COVID?
Boy, I don't have any idea. First of all, let me say this. I loved it when Susan said that, B2B advertising has very often been pretty cerebral and fact-based, but emotional advertising is better. I've been saying that for a long, long time. All advertising ought to be, I used to have a plaque in my office, and it was a quote from Plato, and it said, "There is no learning without emotion." And I finally took it down because everyone said, Jesus, that's been there. But I believe that. And so advocating the idea that emotional advertising is the right approach all the time, especially with B&B. I was really happy to hear that. I would love to see the work. I couldn't see it. So Susan, I'll email you afterwards. Maybe you can send me the work, because all the conversation in the world is great, but you have to look at the work. And other than that, Susan also said everything I was going to say. So we maybe want to go to the next.
Chuck, I don't expect this from you. Come on. We get almost 10,000 people, and you say that they already heard everything you have to say, with your amazing career being the founding father of so many great things so far. No, I'm not accepting this as an answer. I will. Let's see this from another perspective. We have really a polarized world now, and I'm interested really to hear what is your take on should marketers take sides or should they stay neutral when it comes to all types of issues, being there social, political, and others? If you are talking about emotional advertising, I guess your answer would be they should not, but let me not answer instead of you.
Well, let me go back for a second, because what Susan called it is the age of agility, which I think is a great term in terms of what's going to change forever and what is going to go back to the way it used to be. The way we put it here is the future belongs to fast, nimble, and cheap. And I think that there are going to be
fast,
fewer,
nimble, and cheap.
Yes. Okay. Lose cheap, cost effective. I mean, and I don't know. I think that clients, we did a spot a couple of months ago for American Airlines that was, it was a message that they wanted to get out right away. So we made this commercial in 24 hours on iPhones for, I don't know, $10,000, and they loved it. And I guarantee you, when we're all back at work, they're going to say, remember, it only took a day. And I don't think marketers are going to forget that. I think a lot of people are doing work very fast now on a shoestring, and a lot of it's terrific. And so I think that there's going to be, to some degree, a change in the way work gets done. I think that, broadly speaking, going forward, advertising is probably going to look less like movies and more like newscasts. I think people are going to be opportunistic. Susan talked about a long planning process. I think that's a luxury. And I don't think we're going to see a lot of it, because I think that people are going to say, we don't know what the world's going to be like in a year. So why are we doing a 1-year marketing plan? I think it's going to be more like a week. So I think that is going to be, to a large extent, a permanent change. I think what's going to go back to the way it used to be, and I don't think it's ever really changed, is the art of storytelling. I mean, people tell stories on TikTok, on Twitter. I think commercials are going to get shorter. I think they're going to be 5-second commercials, but they're still going to tell stories, because brands essentially are stories. That's what they're about. So I think storytelling will be here forever. It'll be done in a different way. And I think there's going to be an enormous demand for great talent, because there's going to be a lot of ideas that we go through. There's going to be a lot of stuff up there. I think the biggest mistake most advertisers make is they don't change their message often enough. Advertising these days is a conversation, and nobody wants to talk to someone who says the same thing all the time. So I think it's a great time for creative talent. I wish we could find more. The end.
Thank you so much, Chuck. You said storytelling. I said something in the beginning, experiences, immersive experiences. Not sure if these two match somewhere, but looking at the way that the brands are interacting currently with us, with WEBIT, and with the virtual show, most of the brands are currently looking at getting back into contact with what they've lost, the in-person contacts with via events. So they're using now the virtual platform, the virtual show, in order to do their own virtual events, but still getting contact and providing immersive experiences to their whatever its community or its customers or partners, etc. What do you think about that, Chuck? How immersive do you expect to become this relation between customer and a brand?
Well, I mean, or they want to be entertained. So if you're providing useful information or entertainment that they like, they'll get immersed. If you're not, they're going to check out, and they're going to check out really quick. So, it depends on the experience. I mean, the reality is every new technology, every new platform, every new vehicle is just another way to tell a story.
Yep. So can you please answer my question in regards of the neutrality or the being biased in marketeer shoes when it comes to social or political challenges? I'm not asking this for a second time because I forgot that I've asked it already, but because it's very important for our community to hear that from someone like you in times like this.
Yeah, I didn't answer it the first time because I'm actually trying to avoid it, but evidently I'm not going to be able to. So, I mean, these are such strange times. We have.
Chuck, you can pretend that your connection is something happens. It stay like this. So then I will get it. I should not ask you third time. But now if you started.
Okay. It's because I did a couple of years ago about how to market to a polarized world. How to market during wartime, and I had a really interesting panel there, and we kind of agreed that the world has never been, almost all the world, certainly the Western world, the United States, has never been more polarized. And now we're more polarized. So I don't know. I think it's a complicated question for every brand. And I think that if you're gonna take a side, you had better be authentic. I think two things. Number one, you better be authentic, and what you do is more important than what you say. So you better behave as a brand and as a company in the way you want to be perceived, because everyone knows everything now. Transparency is the new black. Everyone can find out what you're doing. So you have to do that. Whether or not you choose to take a side, I think is a complicated question. And I think you will find the answer by knowing your audience. And I think technology is going to come in here, because you can't depend on surveys, because people lie in surveys. I mean, look at Brexit, look at Trump. All the surveys, people were not telling the truth. So you have to look at how people behave. And you really have to know your audience before you decide. Or you have to have, as a corporate tenet, as a corporate sort of ethos, a point of view. The easiest thing to do is to try and stay neutral, but that's getting harder and harder. More and more of your audience wants to know, what do you stand for and who are you? So that was my way of using up about 90 seconds without actually answering your question at all.
Thank you so much, Chuck. It was so informative to our thousands of viewers. And in order for them to understand what you really meant, I would like to go a little bit deeper, if you don't mind, and if the connection is still good with you. Let's presume marketeers go for that interaction. Let's presume they follow Susan's and your advice on being human above all, because humans come with emotions. What would be their biggest mistakes if they decide to go that way and become, show bias when it comes to political and social challenges?
I think that it's an area that's fraught with mistakes. I think the biggest mistake is doing what everyone else does. Early on in the COVID crisis, almost every commercial that I saw said, hey, we're all in this together. We're all united. And then it was signed McDonald's or, Progressive Insurance. Everyone was saying exactly the same thing. And so I think if you want to embrace a position, you have to be authentic, and you have to be honest, and you have to be inventive and original in the way you do it. Because if you come and tell me we're all in this together and we're here to help you during these times, I have no idea who you are, because I just heard that 4 times.
Thank you, Chuck. I would like to bring Susan back to our conversation now, the three of us together, to have this a step further, because we were talking about technology with you, and Chuck brought this beautiful emotional discussion about being biased, and yes, pros and cons, and do and don't do's. But what is the innovation, and this is a question for both of you, knowing Chuck, he's such a gentleman, most probably, Susan, you have to take this question first. What is the innovation or trend you think have the greatest impact on the future of branding, especially now after the COVID times, or during, actually, not after?
Well, I would certainly point to connected television, because we're experiencing a once in a generation shift with connected TV. You think about why that is, and really it's because consumers are in charge, and they drive based on their needs and usage and their lives, they drive change. And that's what happened, for example, in the music industry with the shift towards streaming music away from all of those CDs that I used to have, stacked up in my apartment. And that's what's happening now with television. We did a survey at the trade desk right as in early April, right as the pandemic was kind of starting. And we found that 11% of respondents said that they plan to cut the cord this year. And usually it's 3 to 4% a year cut the cord and unsubscribe to cable. And you're seeing a real acceleration of that for a lot of reasons. One is it's just expensive for people right now. Cable's very expensive, and increasingly they're finding that they can get the content that they're looking for on streaming options, and that's going to be the same for live sports over time, especially with Peacock, et cetera, launching. So we're really seeing a dramatic shift, and that is amazing for advertisers, especially those who are trying to reach younger emerging customers who by and large are either cutting the cord or they've never subscribed to cable. And these advertisers want to tell an emotional story using video advertising. As Chuck said, maybe budgets are going to decrease a bit, but certainly video is an emotional sale, and advertising is a great way to tell a story emotionally and in a human way. And so you're just going to see, and we are seeing the dollars, the investments shift into data-driven CTV, where you can target audiences and you have the agility that most brands are looking for right now.
Thank you so much, Susan. And Chuck, what is your take on that?
In terms of I've never been a futurist. We've always been like, try to do something brilliant today and tomorrow will take care of itself. So it's not something I think about a lot, but I think a trend that's going to happen, and it's already happened in Japan and some other markets, is shorter, briefer, quicker messages. Addressing the shorter, briefer, quicker sort of attention span that people have. I think that's going to be a trend, but I think that the technological trends, nobody knows what they're going to be. So I think that being flexible and nimble and being ready to embrace them is the most important thing a marketer can do.
Nimble, that word, and short, the other word, and emotional, the third word, and authentic, fourth word. There are more words, but obviously we're heading into fast communication. I'm sure this has nothing to do with fast food, the future of marketing. But to ask more questions here, I have the pleasure of having a fantastic co-host who's been a guest at WEBIT Virtual already before. And let me introduce her to all of you.
Elisabeth Brier is an assistant editor and reporter at Forbes. Based in New York City, she covers top innovators and disruptive technologies. She also tracks the fortunes of the world's richest. Prior to arriving at Forbes, Elisabeth was a reporter at the Huffington Post.
Hi, Elisabeth. Welcome back. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for joining again. I always have the pleasure of having you in our studio because you're asking the right questions. And I'm sure you've been listening this fantastic discussion with Susan and Chuck. So thank you so much for joining me as a co-host. And you're representing, of course, this what our audience would like to hear, their questions. And I will suggest you start with your own questions, because I'm sure they will give more light, shed more light to where the branding and marketing is heading these days.
Sure. So I know Chuck spoke on this a little bit, but I kind of wanted to get both of your perspectives as they're quite different. As COVID-19 has spread around the world and reached pandemic levels in March, it seems like the majority of advertisers quickly shifted to acknowledge this event, obviously, in their messaging. But that was without the foresight into how long it would really last. Now we're 4 months into this new reality and there isn't, a clear end date. Do you feel there's still value in acknowledging the virus in advertisements and marketing, or are consumers in desperate need of a respite? What do you both think?
Well, I personally think it was such a shock at first, and the advertising that you saw just responded to, as it should, to what's on people's minds and their customers' minds, because everyone was just trying to process it for a bit, and so you saw a lot of advertising acknowledge that. And of course, it started to kind of all become similar, and then it was harder to break through from that for brands. So I think a lot, what you need to do is go back to who you are, what your brand stands for authentically, and what it means in this new environment, and create narrative considering that, and really about the role that your brand now plays in the future and in what's happening. And it's less about, that we're all just trying to process it, and more about, okay, what is the role of my brand in the future? And I would just say that our lives, many of our lives are sort of being recast and reset to a new reality and a new future. So this is a tremendous opportunity for brands to gain share by capturing consumers who are maybe looking around for new kinds of solutions given the new reality. And again, our technology helps you do that, certainly. But if you're not a brand really thinking about how to capture share right now and how to experiment with new media and new technology, that's a problem for you. So marketing is more important than ever right now.
Yeah. And Chuck, what do you think?
I think that you're right. I think that people are beyond just the initial reaction to it. So I think that unless you have something new to say that is different, or unless your company or your brand is doing something that's different, maybe you go back to your more sort of traditional stuff. But I agree with Susan. The world has changed between COVID and Black Lives Matter. The world has changed. And it's a really great time for brands to look at themselves and say, okay, where are we going to live in this new world? And I think most marketers are probably thinking about that, or ought to be.
Right. Well, that leads to my next question, which, as you said, this summer also saw the rise of the BLM movement, which has been acknowledged as one of the most important civil rights movements since the 1960s. So what do you guys both think? To what extent should advertisers approach social justice issues such as this one? And given their sensitivity, what are the keys to addressing social causes without it coming off as performative?
Well, I think that you have to start with authenticity. Once again, like who you are as a brand. I mean, of course, brands are now and have been part of the social discourse and narrative, and have had narrative and advertising and publishing content around their points of view around public narrative and social narrative. And so I do think it's important for a brand to really understand who they are, what they stand for, and what that means in the context of something as critical as Black Lives Matter. And our company certainly did the same on a lot of fronts. And really, one of the most important was, as a leader, having discussions in our company and with our employees it's a very engaged, passionate, connected community about what this meant to us. How did you feel about this? What does this mean to your families? What is your situation? What's your perspective? And having those conversations internally was one of the most important things that we did as a company, and I did as a leader, was encouraging and fostering those conversations. And there's a lot of other things we did externally, but that's really the important thing right now as a leader, to really get to know what is happening in your teams and how they're feeling about this, and certainly not ignoring its importance.
Right. And Chuck, same question to you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Susan said. If you can't just pay lip service to an issue like this. So if you're going to engage it, you have to engage it as an organization and as a brand at your core. Otherwise, let it go.
Right.
Because people can do fake.
Yeah. And yeah, so that also kind of speaks to, and I think you were talking about this a bit earlier, consumers and even businesses have access to all the information. Everyone's quite tech savvy. what are like the challenges that come with that very easy access to information, and what shifts can you point to in this industry that have successfully, appeased this fairly jaded and in the know audience?
We have
I mean,
1% of our audience, almost 1% of our community staying alive during all this discussion. It's quite a record having that numbers never moving during the whole event. 1% of WEBIT community staying with us, and that question most probably resonates great with all the digerati we have with us. Chuck, sorry for interrupting. Please go ahead.
I'm thinking most of those people are friends of either Susan or I, but I may be wrong about it.
Sure, and some of my family members. We're only 8,000 here, so it's fine.
Elisabeth, you have to tell me your question again.
So basically, I want to know what kind of shifts in the industry you can point to that have successfully appeased to a jaded audience that's become more tech savvy and, have easy access to information.
It's as I said, what brands do, in my opinion these days, what brands do is more important than what they say. Like Domino's is a client of ours, right? And Domino's runs a lot of advertising. But the most important ideas that we've helped with Domino's have been things that they've done, like paving potholes on city streets and other like real brand actions that they've done, which I think have, and also, creating new technology to make it easier to use. Those are the things I think that have moved the needle for them more than all the ads that we've run. So I think brands need to think about what can they do? Because also when a brand does something that's great, that people like, then people become the advertisers. They become your media as opposed to, so that's what we spend a lot of time talking to our clients about. What are we going to do as opposed to what are we going to say?
Right, that makes sense. And Susan, what do you think? Do you have similar thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Chuck just said. You really need to walk the walk as a company and think about the contribution you're going to make in the world. So I completely agree with that. I would say the other sort of challenge as a CMO, and it's been this way for a while, but it's never been more important, is you in order to reach consumers where they are, what media they're using, get their attention, you need to become a content publisher. You need to adjust to a content publishing mindset and be able to react and respond with creative, narrative, publishing, blog posts, pictures, words, whatever it is, in whatever format, quickly to tell a story. And building a content engine like that, it's really the center of any successful brand strategy and marketing strategy. And that includes internal, as far as I'm concerned, internal resources as well as agencies. But it's a competitive advantage when you do it and do it right. And that is how you reach people with messages, see what messages resonate, and then adapt if needed.
Right. So you've both had, illustrious careers. You've done different things in this space. I'm curious what some, misfires you can point to, or things you look back on and maybe saw were the wrong decisions that ended up being teachable moments that made you better marketers and advertisers.
I've never made a mistake. So Susan, you go ahead.
I've forgotten all of mine. Actually, I'm trying to think. I definitely am someone who I'm an optimist at heart, and try to improve on everything we do. I would say, and that's the role of a marketer, is just to test, iterate, improve on what you do. I would say one of the things that at the trade desk, we've underestimated the impact of some campaigns, I would say. I don't know if it's a mistake, but things in the creative process just tend to get bigger and bigger. And then we need to go back and find the investment to make sure that they're out there. And I'd say one of the opportunities for us as I've been at the trade desk is to make sure our media investment is really robust enough to get our messages out and that we're making the case for those dollars. So making sure that proportion of creative development to ad spend is really there and you're getting your message in front of people.
Right. And Chuck, no mistakes that or misfires that became teachable moments later?
Everything I've done has been, but can I talk about a personal thing, which is maybe interesting? Because personally, looking back, the biggest mistake I made was waiting so long to start an agency, because I was a freelance writer forever. And if I had anything to do over again that I consider to be a mistake and a teachable moment, is don't wait so long. So, my advice or whatever it is if you're thinking about doing something, making a change or starting something or doing something you have great passion for, do it. Just do it. You can always go back, but you can never get the time back that you didn't do it. That's like a personal thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And then I guess on the flip side of that, what kind of data do you each utilize to measure success, and how has this perhaps shifted in recent years, or even within the past few months based on everything going on?
I just want to build on what Chuck said and answer your question at the same time, which I just love from a career and a life standpoint, really taking risks and following your heart has never been more important. We all know now that we don't have forever in our lives, and just taking advantage of every minute, like that's what we want to do. And I just love what Chuck said about that. I think following your gut, and I've had a lot of conversations lately, mentoring conversations and other conversations about career, where people are really questioning. It's a time when we're all questioning things, and following your gut is just, in terms of the data to make a change, following your gut is so important. It's something that brought me to the trade desk, which is perhaps one of the most exciting, in fact, the most exciting role I've ever had with such a tremendous company. And it wasn't a logical decision. It wasn't a logical place, but it's the fruit, and what's given me professionally and personally has been huge. And it was really a gut decision. I felt that I wanted to be a part of something and spend time with the people here. So that's super important. From what data for your career, it's your gut.
Right.
The marketing part, however, is not so much gut. Fortunately for us as marketers, there's a tremendous amount of data, especially if you're using an open platform like the Trade Desk. I think one of the current frustrations with Google and Facebook is there's not a lot of transparency with data and results. It's harder to really understand what's behind the measurement and reporting of your campaigns. So from a standpoint of our platform, you can actually measure to specific business outcomes now using the technology available, like for automobile dealer visits, in-store sales, et cetera. There's real opportunity to solve for specific business outcomes as a marketer and show the impact you're making on growth.
Right. And yeah, Chuck, how about you? What kind of data or drives your decision making, and to what extent?
Back when I was sort of more directly involved day to day with the agency, because I'm less involved now directly, when I was really running the agency, the data point I looked at most carefully was personnel turnover. The fewer people that left, the happier they were, the better the agency was, period. The better the work was, the better the culture was. So I looked at that every week. How many people left and why did they leave? And how many people want to come? How many resumes are we getting in? That to me was the measure, maybe the best measure of the health of the agency. Now that I'm less day-to-day involved, really, I just look at net worth.
That makes sense. And then I know you both kind of spoke to this a little bit, but one of my last questions for you was, are there changes to marketing and advertising you expect to see in the next, 5, 10, or, maybe even 20 years, if you're that forward thinking, as technology continues to advance as rapidly as it has? Like, what are some of the short and long-term changes you kind of expect and are maybe already thinking about?
Yeah, no pressure here with this question. It's only for 20 years prediction. Even though I'm sure you are not 100% of where WEBIT is going to happen in the next 4 to 6 months, but still, maybe you are. Susan?
I think that's the fun of marketing, is it's a discipline where you always have to have an eye on what's changing, what's front end, what's cutting edge, and the new trends. And I just love that about this occupation and this discipline. I think to answer your question, we are definitely, yes, going to see changes over the next 5-10 years. And that is going to encompass new advertising formats. You know, you think about Internet of Things and, you know, some of those opportunities which haven't really yet been monetized for advertising. You see the shift to connected television that we just talked about and the complete upending of television buying that's about to happen. And there's going to be many more. And I think the way that we address that as marketing leaders is we build the strongest teams possible. Talent has never been more important to address what's to come, and really set up strategic capabilities like the ability to measure results and optimize campaigns, like content publishing, and a network of creative thinkers around your brand, and other disciplines that really give you strategic advantage.
Yeah. And Chuck, I'll give you the last word with that question.
I'm terrible at predicting, so I don't know. But I do think this. I think politics, government, and changes in government, not only in the US, but everywhere, are going to have more of an effect on marketing than they ever have in the past. That's my prediction.
Thank you so much. That was, by the way, just to share, because you're marketeers and we all work with numbers, regardless if I'm investing or I'm running a virtual event almost every day of the week, we work with numbers. Chuck, for your information, every time you say, I agree with Susan, I was losing 200 to 300 people from the count of the live viewers. Please stop saying I agree with Susan. Note to my team, always get people who kindly disagree between each other. That would be a better fit. But beyond that, I'm so grateful to all of you. And definitely, I'm sure our viewers would take so much from this wonderful, fascinating discussion we had. Elisabeth, you are fantastic. Thank you for asking these questions. Thank you for giving me some breath to breathe at the end of this virtual event. And Susan, Chuck, Elisabeth, I very much look forward to have you with us during our WEBIT Festival Virtual Edition 2020 in November. Until then, I'm sure many of your predictions will come true. Others will be challenged, but I have full respect for what you have achieved so far. And that's why you are with us at WEBIT Virtual, because we only host nothing but amazing. Thank you again to the three of you for being with us. Special thanks to the fantastic WEBIT community from all around the world that's been with us. The Brand Innovation Week continues during the next 2 days. Tomorrow, we are having some of the best startups. You know, WEBIT is running the world's biggest startup challenge. Over 5,000 startups applied, and we are selecting the best of the best every week, presenting 3 to 4 of them in front of a live pitching jury of investors, and we have a winner. Tomorrow is the time for brand innovation, AI-based and advertising, communication startups who will show the future of marketing and branding as per they see it. And the day after, on Thursday, we are hosting a fantastic leading media panel with representatives from Inc. magazine. We have guests from Forbes Russia also, great Anastasia from Forbes 30 Under 30, and many others, best-selling authors. So stay with us, a fantastic week ahead. Again, thank you all for being with us. Special thanks to our panelists. And I'll be seeing you tomorrow in 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 10 seconds. Thank you all.
This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual.